Just a minute. Something has happened here. These are not running. So this is the quick summary of face development. In face, we have seen the formation of the upper lip, upper jaw, lower jaw, external and position of the ear and eye that we have already seen. Now here's the quick summary. See the first figure A. See the frontonasal process where you get the nasal placodes. These nasal placodes they sink in the center, forming the nasal pit. Because of this nasal pit, we get the yellow color that is medial nasal process and the blue color that is lateral nasal process. These nasal pits, they are connecting with the stomatodium. This black color is the stomatodium and this stomatodium is laterally related with the maxillary process and caudal to that is the mandibular process. Okay, so that we know. Just lateral and cranial to this nasal placode, you get the lens placode. Now what happens? The maxillary process starts expanding or grows and it fuses with the lateral nasal process. Now when it fuses with the lateral nasal process, that time only we get the development of the nasolacrimal duct. Okay. So the maxillary process fuses with the lateral nasal process. It again grows. It fuses with the medial nasal process. Because of the growth in the figure, lower figure, you can see because of this growth of the maxillary process, which has already fused with the lateral and medial nasal process. The medial nasal processes, yellow part, they come close to each other and they form the intermaxillary segment. So intermaxillary segments are formed because of the fusion of medial nasal processes. From where these medial nasal processes they have come? Ultimately, they have come from the frontonasal process only. So we know the three components of the intermaxillary segment. Now what happens? Maxilla fuses with the lateral nasal process, maxilla fuses with the medial nasal process, and medial and lateral nasal processes they also fuse with each other. Thus, the external layers they are separated from the oral cavity. Okay, so that is a separation by formation of the premaxilla. Premaxilla is one of the component of the intermaxillary segment. Okay, so first thing is the expansion of the maxilla causes or maxillary process causes the external layers to come close to each other. Okay, because of the expansion of the mandibular process, the ears, external ears, they come to their position. And because of the expansion of the maxillary process, the eye also get its normal position. So first is narrowing of the intermaxillary process or frontonasal process brings the external layers close. Maxillary process causes the eye to their normal side and mandibular process shifts the ear to their normal side. Okay. So basically three processes that are involved in the development of the face. And we have already seen these charts in the last lecture. So you are supposed to summarize all this. The only thing to remember is upper lip or upper jaw. Upper jaw is formed by the maxillary process, but the skin of the upper lip is derived from the maxillary process only. So upper jaw is formed by the two parts. The lateral ectoderm of the maxillary process and central part is formed by the intermaxillary segment. Okay. but the skin of the upper lip is derived from the maxillary process itself, and it is supplied by the maxillary nerve. Okay. Then fusion of the maxillary and mandibular process, it begins from the medial side to lateral side. The unfused part remains as the oral fissure. And when the fusion extends to the lateral side, it forms the cheeks of the face. Okay. So fusion of the medial nasal processes, fusion of the lateral nasal process with maxilla, and fusion of the maxilla and mandibular process. These are giving us the normal face structure. Now coming to the congenital anomalies of the face, today's topic. These are some facial clefts are there. Non-fusion or incomplete fusion of different processes gives us facial clefts. Then anomalies of the oral cavity. Then nose defects, only external nose defect, because nasal cavity will be seen in the next lecture. Then first arch defects, because maxillary process and mandibular processes, they are derived from the first arch, that is mandibular arch. And hypertaylorism and other anomalies. The most common congenital anomaly of the face is the unilateral cleft lip. Okay, remember this? Most common MCQ question. Most common congenital anomaly of the face is unilateral cleft lip. Now, facial clefts. Different facial clefts are there. This is because of the non-fusion of the different components or incomplete fusion of different components or processes. So these facial clefts, they are classified as anterior and posterior. How they are classified? What is the landmark between them? It is the incisive foramen. Incisive foramen is present in the palate. Palate may we have already seen the premaxilla, that is primitive palate, and the secondary palate, primary palate and secondary palate. So at the junction of that, you get a foramen that is called as the incisive foramen. So whatever clefts, they are anterior to the incisive foramen, they are called as the anterior facial clefts, and they include lateral cleft lip, cleft of the upper jaw, and cleft between the primary and the secondary palate. Posterior clefts, they lie posterior to the incisive foramen, and it includes the cleft palate or cleft of the secondary palate and the cleft uvula. Okay. So these are the in general the classification of the cleft facial clefts. Now we are going to see about the cleft lip. Cleft lip, also called as a hair lip. It is a congenital split in the upper lip of one or both the sides. So it may be unilateral, it may be bilateral, or it may be the midline cleft. Okay. So cleft lip, also called as hair lip, because the hair, the animal hair is having the natural cleft lip. Okay, cleft in the upper lip. That is why it is also called as a hair lip. You can get the short note on the cleft lip. Okay, so it is a congenital split in the upper lip of one or both the sides. Why it occurs and what are the different types? Unilateral hair lip, unilateral cleft lip. It occurs because of the failure of the fusion of the maxillary process with medial nasal process on one side. Medial nasal process, remember, because lateral nasal process is not going to form the upper lip or upper jaw. Lateral nasal process is nothing to do with the upper lip and upper jaw. So maxillary process, if it fails to fuse with the medial nasal process on one side, then it is called as a unilateral hair lip. These are the figures. See here, incomplete fusion is there. This is complete non-fusion is there. And the third figure must be there. I am not able to see this because here your attendance is coming. Okay. So bilateral hair lip, failure of the fusion of both maxillary processes with the medial nasal processes. So it will lead to the bilateral cleft lip. See the bilateral cleft lip. Then midline cleft of the upper lip, failure of the fusion of both the medial nasal processes with each other. That will lead to the midline cleft lip. So this is the midline cleft lip. The unilateral one, when the maxillary process fails to fuse with the medial nasal process on one side, when it fails to fuse on both the sides, then it leads to the bilateral hair lip. And when medial nasal processes fail to fuse with each other, then it will lead to the midline cleft of the upper lip. Now, what is the incidence? It may or may not be associated with the cleft palate. Remember this. Now, incidence is 1 in 1000. The males are commonly affected than females. The 65% occurs in males. Increased maternal age increases the incidence. If one sibling is having cleft lip, then the chance increases by 4%. And two siblings, then the chance again increases more. Okay. So remember this incidence is very common. It is 1 in 1000 births. Cause, it may be genetic cause, it may be cigarette smoking during pregnancy, or it may be the teratogenic compounds like the valproic acid. It is the anticonvulsant drug. If valproic acid is taken during pregnancy, then it will lead to the cleft lip. So these are the three causes. It may be genetic. You can get these cleft lip and cleft palate in many syndromes. Okay, like Cradicchard syndrome or Edwards syndrome and all that. So the cause may be genetic, or individually if you are getting cleft lips, then it may be because of the valproic acid or it may be because of the cigarette smoking. Then severity. Severity of the cleft lip varies. It may be barely visible cleft lip, or it may extend to the upper jaw. So it may lead to the cleft of the upper jaw also, or it may lead to the split between the maxilla also. And that time this cleft passes between the lateral incisor teeth and the canine teeth. Okay. So if you remember, the premaxilla is holding upper four incisor teeth, and after incisor teeth you get the canine. So the line of cleft passes between the lateral incisor and the canine tooth. Okay. So severity varies. It may be limited to lip, or it may extend into the upper jaw, or it may extend in the maxilla. If it is a midline cleft we have seen, if it is a midline cleft, it may be associated with the loss of midline structures in the brain. Okay, so this will occur at the time of the nerulation, when the brain is being formed. That time, if the cleft lip is there, then that time it will affect the midline structures of the brain also. And one of the examples is fused lateral ventricles. Both the lateral ventricles which are present in the cerebrum, they fuse with each other, and that condition is called as the holoprosencephaly. Holo, that is whole one. Holoprosencephaly. Then coming to the cleft of the lower lip. So what we have seen is the hair lip, that means upper lip clefts only. Now coming to the cleft of the lower lip, why it will occur? Lower lip, how it is formed? It is formed because of the fusion of mandibular process. So cleft of the lower lip, when the two mandibular processes do not fuse with each other, it will lead to the cleft of the lower lip. This is a midline defect and it usually extends into the jaw. Okay. So this is the figure, midline cleft of the lower lip. Then oblique facial cleft. Because of the non-fusion of the maxillary process and lateral nasal process. Okay. This is the oblique facial cleft which extends from the medial side of the eye up to the lateral side of this angle of the mouth, where the lateral nasal process is also there. And we have seen that along this fusion, you get the development of the nasolacrimal duct. So if they are not fused, if the processes are not fused, then the nasolacrimal duct may not be formed or it may be exposed to the surface. So this is the fusion of the maxilla with the lateral nasal process which have been failed here, and so there is a this cleft extends from the medial end of the eye up to the lateral end of the oral cavity or oral fissure. And in this case, the exposed nasolacrimal duct may be there or nasolacrimal duct may not be formed at all. So these are different pictures showing this is a bilateral cleft lip. Okay, bilateral cleft lip matlab maxillary process has failed to fuse with the medial nasal process on both the sides. This is see this cleft is extending up to the medial side of the left eye. So this is the oblique facial cleft, second figure, or C. C is oblique cleft of the face. Now here in the lip you can appreciate this is the midline cleft lip, and at the same time there must be something in the brain. So brain middle structures, they are not formed here. This is the figure, fourth figure showing midline cleft lip. Midline cleft lip is there because non-fusion of the medial nasal processes with each other. So that is a midline cleft lip. So that is about the clefts of the face. Different clefts are there. If the cleft is in the upper lip, then we call it as hair lip. So cleft lip. Then other clefts like cleft in the lower lip, then oblique facial clefts are there. So that is about the clefts in the face. Now coming to the oral cavity and the nose defects. Oral cavity, oral fissure. If the oral fissure is large one, why it will occur? It will occur because of the inadequate fusion of the maxillary and the mandibular process. And if there is inadequate fissure, then the mouth cavity or the oral fissure will be very large. So this is the large oral opening or the oral fissure called as macrostomia. Macro is large. Macrostomia. Excessive fusion of maxillary and the mandibular process will lead to a very small mouth that is called as microstomia. See the oral fissure, it is very small. So that is micro. Micro means small. So microstomia is there. And one interesting anomaly is there. The nose is formed as a cylinder and it is just below the forehead, and below nose you get a single eye that is seen in the cyclops, and that condition is called as proboscis. So this is the nose process, proboscis, and this is the single fused median eye. This condition is called as proboscis. So that is about the oral cavity. Then you know the maxillary and mandibular processes both are formed from the mandibular arch. Mandibular arch, we have seen the clinical conditions in the first arch, mandibular arch, that is Treacher-Collin. First arch syndrome, which includes the Treacher-Collin syndrome and Peary-Robin syndrome. You should remember those things. First arch syndrome includes two conditions. Treacher-Collins syndrome, and Peary-Robin syndrome. Then mandible defects. The mandible defects are retrognathia. Small mandible is there as compared to the other facial bones. So that is retrognathia, and agnathia. A means absent. Agnathia is mandible is completely absent. It fails to develop. So see this picture, mandible is absent here. Okay. So mandible is not formed, and that is called as a agnathia. The condition, last condition is hypertelorism. This is because of the presence of the excessive tissue in the frontonasal process. If the tissues are present in the frontonasal process, then there will be the broad nasal septum. A nasal bridge is very broad and widely separated eyes will be there. So that is called as hypertelorism. Then other small anomalies are there, like half the face may be underdeveloped or half the face may be overdeveloped. Then attempt to duplicate some part, it may lead to the formation of the congenital tumors. Then the lips may show some pits, fistulas or duplications. So these are some other anomalies. You have to remember the cleft lip. You can get the short note of the cleft lip. Its incidence, the reason why the fusion does not occur, what are the causes, what are different types, unilateral, bilateral, all you have to remember. Okay. Now, what is molecular regulation of face development? Now, as we have seen that face development is occurring from different processes of the pharyngeal apparatus, and in that the skeletal development, skeleton of the face which develops from the arches, that is coming from the neural crest cells, isn't it? So neural crest cells, they migrate to the pharyngeal arches, and these neural crest cells, they form the cartilage in the pharyngeal arch. This cartilage may remain as a cartilage, it may form the bones of the cartilage, or it may form the ligament. So these neural crest cells, they migrate, but before migration of the neural crest cells, before the formation of the arch, you know the arch means mesoderm, cleft means ectoderm, and pouches means endoderm. So before the formation of the arch, the pouches are formed, and these pouches, that means endoderm, is governing the formation of the arch. Okay. So molecular regulation of the arch is by pouch. Okay. So before the formation of the pharyngeal arches, pharyngeal pouches are formed even before the migration of the neural crest cells. And they are formed by the lateral migration of the endoderm. If you remember the figure, the pouches are lateral migration of the endoderm. How the pouches are formed? They are governed by the fibroblast growth factor. So first remember, before arch formation, the pouches are formed by the lateral migration of the endoderm, and this lateral migration is stimulated by the fibroblast growth factors. Then these pouches, they will be having a width. जितना neck है उतना रहेगा. These pouches, they will be having the dorsal part, middle part, ventral part, same. Okay. So pouches, they express different characteristic pattern of the genes in different regions of the pouch. Okay. So in the anterior endoderm, they express fibroblast growth factor 8. That is anterior end of the pouch, anterior endoderm. In the posterior endoderm, they express bone morphogenic protein 7. In the posterior most endoderm, that is dorsal most endoderm, they express the PAX1 gene, and posterior endoderm of the second and the third pouch express the sonic hedgehog gene. Okay. Now, these factors, they stimulate the arch mesenchyme to differentiate into specific skeletal elements. Because it is not like that all the arches, they are forming the same thing. You know, the derivatives of different arch is different skeletal structures, isn't it? All the arches, they are not forming the same bone. How this happens? Because arch mesenchyme, the neural crescents, they migrate there, but these neural crescents, they also carry some transcription factors. Some genes are there of the Hox family in the neural crescents which migrate into the arch. So reaction of each neural crescents of each arch will be different to the stimulation by pharyngeal pouch. So, what are these factors present from the Hox family into different neural crest cells of different arches? Neural crest cell in the first arch is Hox negative. It does not have any transcription factor from the Hox family, but it is having some other part. Neural crest cells in the second arch is having Hox A2 transcription factor, and neural crest cells in the third to sixth arches is having respectively the Hox A3, Hox B3 and the Hox B3 transcription factors. So neural crest cells in the arches, they are migrating there, but they are carrying different transcription factor along with them. That is why these neural crest cells, they react differently to the genes which are stimulating them from the pouch. And the pouch is the one which is first formed, then the arch is formed. Pouch is formed, pouch will be having different genes in its different locations. Neural crest cells migrate into the arch along with different transcription factors with them, and because of that you are getting different bone formation of the skeletal or the skeleton of the face from different arches. So thus each arch respond differently to the signals coming from the pouch, and we get different derivatives from each arch. Okay, it is very easy. पहले pouch form होगा, pouch में different genes है, neural crest cells migrate होंगे, and neural crest cells के साथ में different genes will be there, transcription factors will be there. And when the pouch genes will react on these neural crest cells, we get different facial structures. Now that is all about the face development. Now we are going to see the oral cavity. So oral cavity, development of the oral cavity. Mouth is a very loose term. Mouth means the oral fissure and the structures within the mouth. Okay. So structures leading to from the oral fissure, they are actually tongue and teeth. So oral cavity must be having some wall, and then within that there are some structures. Okay. Now remember, the oral cavity is derived from two derms, ectoderm and endoderm. Ectoderm component is derived from the stomatodium. It forms the primitive oral cavity. And then endoderm, which is derived from the cephalic part of the foregut, it forms the definitive oral cavity. Okay. So remember, if you remember this figure, this is the one bulge that is formed because of the developing brain, and the another bulge because of the developing heart, pericardial bulge. In between there is the gap. This is called as the stomatodium, and this is the cephalic part of the foregut. That is from where you are getting the pharyngeal arches. So between them, between the stomatodium, which is ectoderm, and between the cephalic part of the foregut, which is endodermal in origin, here the membrane is called as the buccopharyngeal membrane. This is the buccopharyngeal membrane. If you remember, this buccopharyngeal membrane ruptures, and so ectoderm and the endodermal derivatives, they form the oral cavity. ectoderm forms the primitive oral cavity and endoderm forms the definitive oral cavity. So this is the buccopharyngeal membrane, and when it ruptures, it is very difficult to differentiate between the ectodermal components and endodermal components. Okay. So primitive oral cavity. Primitive oral cavity develops from the stomatodium. Primitive oral cavity is ectodermal in origin. Primitive oral cavity is ectodermal origin. It is developing from the stomatodium. And if you remember, the stomatodium, the buccopharyngeal membrane ruptures, and you get a large cavity. This large cavity is divided into two parts: upper nasal cavity and then lower oral cavity. So remember, when the buccopharyngeal membrane ruptures, you are getting a large cavity. Then palate develops, and this palate will form or separate the cavity into two parts: nasal part and the oral part. So nasal part, it forms the mucous membrane of the nasal cavity, septum and the palate. Oral part, it forms the mucous membrane of the cheeks, lips, gums and the enamel of the teeth. So oral part is important. We are seeing the oral cavity. So oral cavity must be having the walls and the contents of the oral cavity. The walls are lined by the ectoderm, and whatever contents are there, that is tongue, base of the oral cavity, they are formed by the endoderm. So derived from the definitive oral cavity derived from the cephalic part of the foregut. So that means it is endodermal in origin. Then जो oral cavity, अपनी oral cavity, think about your mouth. Now oral cavity is having a roof which is formed by the palate, and the floor of the oral cavity is there, in which the tongue is lying, tongue and the alveolar processes. So roof of the oral cavity formed by the palate. Palate are of two types: primary palate and secondary palate. They fuse to form the definitive palate. So this is developmentally, you have got the primary palate, secondary palate, they fuse together to form the definitive palate. And in gross anatomy, you know that palate is divided into the hard palate and the soft palate. So that is altogether a different term. See, this is the palate which is formed at the roof, and this sulcus develops. This sulcus is called as the labiogingival furrow. From where, because of this, the upper lip and the gums, alveolar processes, they are separated from each other. Labio is lip and gingival is gum. Okay. So how the upper lip is separated from the upper jaw or the alveolar process? By this sulcus that is called as the labiogingival furrow. Okay. Labiogingival furrow, and because of the upward arching of this palate, the medial margin of the alveolar process becomes prominent. Okay. So upward arching of the palate and the sulcus of the furrow developing between the upper lip and the alveolar process, you get the alveolar processes more prominent. Okay. That is the roof of the oral cavity. Now coming to the floor of the oral cavity. In floor, what are the structures? Tongue is there, lower lip is there, lower jaw is there, and the lower part of the cheeks are there. So all these structures, they are formed in the floor of the mouth. They are not very well demarcated initially. Again, you know the tongue is formed. So tongue should be separated from the lower jaw, and lower lip also should be separated from the lower jaw or the alveolar process. So tongue gets separated from the lower jaw by the lingiogingival sulcus. Lingio is tongue, gingival is the gums. Okay. So it is endodermal in origin. This sulcus is endodermal in origin. Again, the lower lip is separated from the lower jaw and cheeks by the labiogingival sulcus. One is lingiogingival sulcus, one is labiogingival sulcus, which is ectodermal in origin. So imagine the separation of the lower lip with the lower jaw and the tongue. So there are two sulci which are formed here, and this gets the area which is present, which this gives us the alveolar process. This alveolar process is present between the two sulci. Okay. See the floor of developing mouth. Here, floor of the developing mouth. Here, you get the development of the tongue. The tongue is separated from the gums or alveolar process by the linguogingival sulcus. Then again the second sulcus appears. This is the lip on the cheeks. So this is the labiogingival sulcus. This is the linguogingival sulcus. This is the labiogingival sulcus. And in between you get the alveolar process. That is the teeth. Alveolar process from where the teeth will be arising. So tongue अपने खुद के oral cavity में think करो और देखो. There is tongue in the center. Then tongue is separated from the jaw, lower jaw, and lower jaw is separated from the lower lip by different sulci. Now, oral cavity has got the structures which are derived from the ectoderm also and endoderm also. So remember, oral cavity is a space. Its walls, they are lined by ectoderm, and the contents of the oral cavity, they are lined by endoderm. So ectodermal derivatives क्या है? Mucous membrane of the cheeks, lips, gums, and the enamel of the teeth. Endodermal derivatives क्या है? Epithelium of the tongue, floor of the mouth, soft palate, and palatoglossal and palatopharyngeal folds. Okay, so it is very easy to remember what is ectodermal, what is endodermal. Whatever is the wall of the oral cavity, that is ectodermal in origin, and the contents of the oral cavity are endodermal in origin. The lining epithelium of the inner aspect of the lip, cheek, palate is ectodermal. Teeth and gums, they are ectodermal. And labiogingival sulcus, which is separating the lip from the jaw, is ectodermal. Then epithelium of the tongue is endodermal. Floor of the oral cavity is endodermal in origin, and linguogingival sulcus is endodermal in origin. All these are the questions of MCQ, or it is the MCQs can be asked on these terms. So I think that's all. Hope you are studying hard, because soon you will be having MCQ test of whatever topics you have covered up till now. Okay? So thank you. Study hard. Stay safe. Any questions?
Can you put up that mandible defect slide once again, as it was not visible that time?
Okay. Mandible defects means macroscopic. This one?
Yes, ma'am, this one.
One is retrognathia, one is agnathia. Okay. And one condition where the first arch is affected, that is Treacher-Collins syndrome. We have seen this in the first arch syndrome, Treacher-Collins syndrome. And one is retrognathia, when the mandible is small as compared to the rest of the bones. And one is agnathia, where mandible is not appearing at all. It fails to develop. So this is agnathia. The lower
Okay, thank
picture
you,
is
ma'am.
agnathia. Okay. Anything else?
No, ma'am, thank you.
Any other difficulty to anyone? Okay, bye. मामा चला झालंय आता. नाही करायची. कधीपासून आवाज येते मी कसं बंद करायचं ते मला नाही माहिती. मी पेंडल काढून टाकलं बस बाकी काय नाही केलं.